Welcome to part 3 of Springfield Armory XDM Elite Compact 10mm, the most potent bear defense weapon, recoil, weaknesses, and conclusion. I put a high value on pistols that feature a standard pick rail, not because of a fascination with lights and lasers, but so that I can run the MantisX training aid, which is essential for any pistol shooter and more so for a 10mm given the cost of practice ammo. During one range session, I did collect MantisX recoil data to compare the XDM 10mm with a 9mm.
76.
While the results are still pending, I did notice that after several
92.
sessions with the XDM, switching to the 9mm,
92.
I found myself much improved.
63.
It seems that working to master
80.
the 10mm recoil
61.
helps get your shit together for the 9s. Weaknesses. Striker plate opening could permit dirt, rain, or snow to enter the fire control unit. This is probably the result of making an engineering choice between low bore axis or a filled gap. The polymer rear slide rails aren't exactly inspiring. Do they really hold up for 10 to 20,000 rounds? I know that during my testing with over 3,000 laser dry fire shots and 400 live fire, I've seen no indication of adverse wear. In fact, a remarkable lack of wear throughout the pistol. Does the loaded chamber indicator increase the risk of causing a malfunction? I do prefer it over a witness hole, but I still prefer to get eyes on a cartridge in the chamber. Still, the loaded chamber indicator is nicely tactile for checking the status in the dark. Furthermore, when doing press checks, I found that the pistol goes right back into battery, even with fully loaded magazines. I also like that the striker indicator is a tactile check to know that the pistol striker is cocked and a point to index on when reholstering. That is for getting the web of your thumb clear of the grip safety. As for the striker channel access for cleaning, I do prefer the Mossberg SDS takedown for its simple access. While removing the XDM striker plate is pretty easy, to pull the striker out of the XDM, you do have to knock out a roll pin. Not my favorite. Iron sights. The fiber optic front sight is great for learning ambidextrous transitions. The red dot-like brightness helps the brain lock onto the eye that has the sight in view. Fiber optic sights are pretty easy to break. I think I would prefer tritium though, like on the Hellcat. Optics plates. I dislike optics plates. The XDM adapter plates extend out too wide, ruining the lovely taper of the slide's top, and create a shelf that generates some holster drag and is a bit harsh on my whittle hands when slingshotting. I would prefer a simple, narrow RMSC cut in the slide. Adapter plates create two potential failure points. One for attaching the plate to the slide, and a second for attaching the sight to the plate, doubling the risk that something might come loose. In my own testing of the Brighteon RFX35, my sight did come loose, despite having applied blue thread locker and having been properly torqued. The mounting plate also adds 21 grams to the optic installation. That is, more mass on the slide will increase the risk of cycling malfunction. Although I experienced zero malfunctions with the firearm over my limited 400 rounds of live fire. Iron sights are useless also when the RDS is mounted on the Springfield XDM. Maybe suppressor height sights, some pretty high ones, could co-witness with the lower third of a mounted optic. The internal extractor intrudes into the adapter plates, so mounting can't really go lower. The slide is very trim above the barrel, hence no room to deeply recess a red dot sight. Uselessly adding more slide material would give a false sense that the RDS is being mounted low. To get a lower mount would require a redesign of the slide internals, an external extractor for example. Springfield Armory mounting plates for the XDM are $25 each. I'll include a list of which adapter plates fit which optics at AmbGun.com, link in the description. But basically the XD5071, the number 1 plate, is the Hex Dragonfly plate. The XD5072 is the RMSC plate, and the XD5073 is the RMR plate. I did try to mount a Shield RMSC to the XDM, but I was unable to get the number 2 adapter plate to work with either of my Shield sights, the RMSC or the SMSC. I emailed Springfield support and submitted an online warranty claim about a possible out-of-spec plate. Never heard back. So if you want support, make a phone call. I so dislike adapter plates that I removed the RFX35 and went back to iron sights. Even the RMSC plates for the smaller footprint optics overhang the slide, so I wasn't motivated enough to pursue a resolution with Springfield. Flared Magwell or a skirt for your 10mm. Given that a double stack magazine that tapers to single feed should be enough counter flare for fast reloads, I removed the flared Magwell. I found my grip was much better without the flare. Smaller hands might find the flared Magwell just fine. Stopping power, 10mm stopping power, is it worth it? An ammo.com article reports that with, quote, 10mm self-defense load, shooters will have to endure recoil in the range of 10 to 12 foot-pounds of punishment to their wrist. In contrast, 9mm shooters will only have to fight off 4 to 8 foot-pounds of recoil.
74.
Link down description.
85.
The 10mm advantage of shooting through cover. Vehicles, trees, walls, and glass. With large predators, is it easier to reach and destroy the central nervous system or wreck skeletal mobility? Otherwise, simply destroying a bear's heart or lungs still leaves nearly 5 minutes of oxygenated blood to slaughter you and enjoy one last supper before he perishes. And waiting for the beast to bleed out from a hit to a non-vital area will take much, much longer, regardless of caliber. Like when dealing with a target that moves and shoots back, a bear is a target that moves very fast and slashes back. The perfect shooting stance, perfect two-handed grip, perfect sight picture is unlikely. Can you point shoot? Multiple hits improve the chances that one will hit a vital area. Is the added firepower sufficiently more effective or just more over-penetrative than calibers that are easier and faster to shoot? So much more effective that 11 rounds of 10mm compared to 15 rounds of 9mm is a legitimate trade-off? And given your training budget, with which will you be most proficient? Within the defense against humans realm, is the over-penetration risk worth the ability to defeat thicker cover than a 9mm? My standard backcountry carry is still the .22 long rifle P17. In general, I prefer to allocate weight and bulk to emergency trauma care. Thanks to my mountain bike skills, it seems like I'm far more likely to need wound packing gauze and a tourniquet than a bigger, heavier firearm. A woman named Bella Twin was famous for killing a charging grizzly bear with her little battered .22 rifle. At the time, it was a world record bear. See link in the description. I've seen online videos of bears caught in traps being dispatched with a .22, and I've personally witnessed many large farm animals dispatched with a .22 with shockingly clean kills. Still, a 10mm would be comforting when that hungry predator has chosen you for take home. So, in conclusion, I really like this pistol. I like the ambi controls. I like the slim slide on it, how it tapers down a bit. I do wish the grip texture was like the Hellcat and that the front sight was a tritium, but again, minor issues. I love that it's got a standard pick rail on it, and of course all the ambi controls. That's what AmbGun is all about, is ambidextrous controls, so that was why I inquired about it. I've developed a new appreciation for the grip safety as far as, basically, especially for holstering. It's just you can, basically disconnect to shut the pistol off while you holster it. So I really like that. Just another layer of not shooting yourself in the important parts. Seems to be really holding up really well as far as wear. I've 3,200 dry fires and 400 rounds of live fire, and it just doesn't show hardly any wear at all. I like the XDM so much, I will be keeping it. It's not going to become my CCW pistol. It'll just be on reserve for those times that I'm like maybe camping in the backcountry where there are grizzlies and large predators. Generally, I'm probably still going to be carrying the Kel-Tec P17 because just it's so lightweight. I can carry 50 rounds very easily and then have lots of room left over for, you know, tourniquets, first aid, you know, other trauma, emergency trauma gear, which is generally what I'm probably going to need more than anything. You know, this mountain bike behind me sometimes doesn't treat me too well. You know, and this thing has a really, really great trigger. I think what made it score, you know, at the top of all my centerfire pistols on the MantisX dry firing stuff. And speaking of the MantisX, invite you to join my AmbGun group with MantisX. You don't even have to have a MantisX to you know, join a group and open an account there. You know, that part's free. Although I do encourage you to get a MantisX if you have any kind of pistol. And again, that's why I am, you know, really insistent on a standard pick rail. Although my general everyday carry 9 is the SIG P365XL, and but I do have a pick rail adapter for it, but it's really awkward just setting that all up. So I usually use an MC2C for dry firing for 9mm, and then of course I've got my Kel-Tec P17, which has a standard pick rail on it, which I love, and with our AmbGun hammer block, I can dry fire that, and that's why it's you know, P17 is really the top for shootability. It's got a great trigger, and then that Applegate grip ratio is really good for point shooting. So, does the NATO and U.S. Army Handbook on Human Vulnerability conclusions that for human targets, the key is number of hits rather than caliber, and that's 22 versus 9 versus 45 ACP? Does that apply to bears too? Maybe with bear things are different, but for a pack of wolves, I think I'd prefer 100 rounds of 22 than 11 rounds of 10. Moreover, despite thousands of rounds of dry fire, I feel like 93. I would need 5,000 to 10,000 rounds of practice live fire to become truly proficient with the XDM 10mm, a rather expensive proposition. 9mm would cost far less and 22 way less. Keep in mind that other creatures are far more likely to kill you than bears. Far more people are killed by the goofy looking moose, and even more people succumb to the lowly mosquito. So be sure to pack some insect repellent along with that 10mm bear gun. Anyway, this is Mark Laughlin speaking for the Ambidextrous Gunfighter. Please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you for watching.